Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Loading Mag NUFC away days. Another away days. Feels like we're doing these every 5 seconds, Chris. But look, match days, and we absolutely love them. We're back with an absolute cracker tonight. It's the big one: Arsenal Newcastle at the Emirates. First v third. It's the one we've been looking forward to for a while now. I think Newcastle fans secretly, and it's here. Massive game. Just before we get the guys in, because Kev and Dan are both waiting in the green room. Chris, just your thoughts on the game coming up. What's your mentality? What's your thinking going into this game?
I don't know, Pete. I'm a little bit nervous, obviously, but I think it's because we all know, like, this is the big game, isn't it? For the last few weeks, months, we've all been talking about this Arsenal game, and I suppose that this is kind of, it feels like our litmus test. If we come up against Arsenal tomorrow and put in a really good performance, then, you know, where else can we go for the rest of the season? Obviously, if we end up getting a good harden, maybe that'll give us a little bit of perspective. I don't know, but I'm really looking forward to it. A little bit skeptical, a little bit nervous, but I'll be honest, I'm sure Arsenal fans probably feel the same way. Massive game for them.
Definitely. We'll get their thoughts very shortly. Look, I'm excited.
Yeah.
These are the games that I missed. You know, back in the 90s, early 2000s, we were playing the big teams and competing against the big teams. This is what it's all about, and I'm excited about this game. Can't wait for it to get started. But look, as always, and appreciate them taking the time to come and join us. We always love the opposition's perspective on away days on Loaded Mag NUFC. And it's an absolute pleasure to welcome back, firstly, Dan Potts from the 12th Man podcast. How you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. Big up, Pete. Big up, Chris. Big up the chat. Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure, man. I feel like I should at least return the favour, seeing as you're on my show once a week, bruv. So thanks for having me, man.
It's always a pleasure, my man. And of course, a fantastic special guest joining us, ex-Arsenal striker, someone I watched a lot when I was growing up and tried to model my game on him, as well as a couple of others. We have Kevin Campbell. Welcome, my man, to the show. Oh, you can't hear.
That's a great start.
He's in. We were just talking.
He's gonna come back in, Kev. Yeah?
Come back, man. We're gonna give him another.
You built him up. You built him up too much, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we were having a great chat as well with the forums before we went live.
Yeah.
But look, we'll get him to come back in. Make sure to get his volume absolutely spot on. But look, Dan, this is a massive game. I know we've been talking about it just on messages and stuff, but what are your thoughts about this game? How big is it for you?
Well, Pete, you know my thoughts on Newcastle, mate. You know, a lot of the time people have been saying that I am a Newcastle fan on my channel, which is not the case. I big up Newcastle because I think you deserve it. I think the fans have been through absolute hell in the last 15 years for an ownership which was, in my opinion, an absolute disgrace. And I think now you've got what I believe you deserve and more so. But I think what I've been surprised about, Pete, is how well Eddie Howe's done straight from the off, because I've always been a big fan of him. But I didn't really know how he was going to go into this job, seeing as he wasn't the favourite. He wasn't one that everybody was talking about. People were using Unai Emery's name. People were talking about Simeone, Conte, all these names. And I'm thinking, wow. And then when it was Eddie Howe, I think people thought, oh, okay, so they're not going for a huge name then. But I really liked the appointment because I really enjoyed what he did at Bournemouth. I think to take them from where they were to put them onto the map, so to speak, was an unbelievable job. And I think he's been exceptional at Newcastle. I really like what he's done. And through your recommendation, I started to listen to a lot that has been gone on since he'd left Bournemouth and before he joined Newcastle, to go and work with the people and learn from the people that he did. You can now see a balance in Newcastle that has a little bit of a Klopp, Simeone and Pep look in terms of the balance. And I think now when you look at both sides, probably on form, you're looking along with Man City as two of the best footballing sides that are going to come against each other tomorrow night. And I'm expecting to see football. I'm not expecting to see let's keep it like tight and try and nick it 1-0 from either side. I'm expecting to see dog v dog, mate, and going at it. I really do. And I expect it to be an exceptional football game. So I'm going to the game. I'm looking forward to it. But I'm going to be going in there like I do with all Arsenal games, quietly confident because it's at the Emirates, but also because of our form. But Newcastle can cause us some damage. They've been a fantastic side. And I think the pressure will be more on us because you guys are literally enjoying the ride at the moment. I mean, you literally are. It's like you drew to Leeds, so what? Do you know what I mean? You're still in there with the Champions League space, and nobody expected you to be up there at the moment. And fair play to you, man. I'm looking forward to it.
No, I really respect those opinions, and I agree with pretty much everything you've said. Absolutely spot on. But Kev, can you hear us first and foremost?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Get in. Look, pleasure to have you on. Great to have you to take some time to join us on Loaded Mag NUFC. But look, the same question really. I've just asked Dan. Is it just what are your opinions of sort of like Newcastle, Eddie Howe, the job that's been done so far from Newcastle since the takeover just over a year ago?
Well, I've got to say, Newcastle, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Newcastle. Since I played against Newcastle in 1990. Some of you guys weren't around. Played up there. There was no roof on the Gallagher. It was freezing. It was Roy Aitken's first game. And I was there with Leicester. I was on loan at Leicester. The game finished 4-3. It was a hell of a game. We were 3-1 up, cruising, and you guys came back and pipped us in the end 4-3. But the supporters were outstanding. And I've been up there so many times. I worked with Geordie Pete Redding and his family out in Dubai. And I know more. I know a lot more about Newcastle than a lot of teams. I can tell you that much. But when I look at Newcastle now under Eddie Howe, I think Eddie Howe coming in was maybe it's a surprise to some because he's a good name, but he's not that big name probably that the Toonami wanted. As Dan said, Simeone was mentioned, Unai Emery was mentioned. These guys are winners, etc. And it was maybe a little bit of surprise after the takeover. But I've got to say, what he's done, Manfred is a coach. And what he's done, he's come in and he's coached this team. And it just goes to show what a coach can actually do. I just look at Joe Linton.
Yeah.
Signed as a striker. Now he's a box-to-box midfielder. And he's actually running people ragged at times, isn't he? He's doing so well in that midfield. Obviously, had a little bit of money to spend. I think he spent his money wisely. Trippier comes in, was a huge signing. Listen, Dan Burn, I think Dan Burn coming up, a lot of Newcastle fans probably were unsure. He's showing what a good player he is. Sven Botman, what a good player he is, and obviously the main man in midfield. Bruno's been unbelievable, hasn't he? And there's some injuries, obviously, but this guy, Bruno, we were a bit sick, Dan, weren't we? Because we wanted him. And
I wanted him bad. I remember I told you, I said, I want this guy.
Yeah, but, we're a bit sick. That obviously went to Newcastle. But I just think the gelling of the team has been amazing under the manager. And credit to the players as well. The fan base have embraced the players. Yeah. And, what is it, over the last year and a bit, Newcastle are up there on form with anyone. So that only goes to show what a good coach can do with players who are willing to learn and willing to do what he wants. So, listen, I love what's happening at Newcastle. As I said, I've got a soft spot for the Toon. And listen, Newcastle is going to be a real, real tough game. But, when you do well, it brings up more questions because you have to start getting over hurdles. And now Arsenal have been there. You have to get over certain hurdles. Now that's where Newcastle are. I know the Toonami are. They want it so much. They want to do well so much. Yeah. But you come up against Arsenal, who are top of the league, away from home. This is a hurdle you've got to get through or get over. And it's the gauge to where you are. So I think it's a big game for both clubs in different respects.
No, great points. And Chris, Kev Kev's just talked about hurdles. It is that hurdle, isn't it? It's kind of. Would you say it's that? It's the ultimate test so far this season of where we're at as a team and as a club in terms of where we're going.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, obviously we've had some really big results this season so far, and we were really, really unlucky, as I'm sure Dan and Kev will remember. We've had one defeat this season, and that was in the last minute at Anfield, which I was in the away end for, and it was horrific. And we didn't
108th
deserve.
minute, wasn't it? Or 110th
Oh,
minute or
mate.
something.
Yeah. We
It
didn't.
might as well have been the 200 because then they carried on playing if they'd not scored. Then they just played until they scored the goal.
Oh, talking of scoring, it's 3-1 Brentford.
Oh,
3-1 Brentford. Yeah.
Hey, the panel's all happy here. Everyone was clapping. Everyone was loving it. Brilliant. Yeah. Sorry, Chris. Go on.
But no, I was just saying, that's our only defeat this season, and we've put in some fantastic performances, and we've been to some difficult places as well. We've had a few difficult away games, and none more so than this one coming up tomorrow. And yeah, as I said at the start, Pete, for me, it's a bit of a litmus test, and if we can come through this unscathed, even if we got a draw at the Emirates, I'd be absolutely delighted with that, because Arsenal this season have looked electrifying, and it seems that not just Eddie Howe, as Kev was saying, Eddie Howe's come in and really made a difference to Newcastle, but certainly over the past couple of seasons, Arteta has really put his marker down, hasn't he? I know there was a few doubters at the start. And he did have, a tough period, should we say, when he first came in, and there was a few people doubting whether he'd be the right person to take them forward. But this season, he's probably far exceeded everyone's expectations, and Arsenal deserve to be where they are, and that's why this game tomorrow will be so interesting, because it's two very good informed teams. So that's why I think we're all looking forward to the game.
No, great points for sure, Chris. And look, you've touched on Arsenal, so we want to get to that now. Look, it has been a phenomenal start to the season for Arsenal. I'll just click it up now. Top of the league, 43 points. Look, Dan, I'll come to you first. Did you expect this to happen? And just assess, in your opinion, your season so far as an Arsenal fan.
You're joking, aren't you, Pete? You think I expected this? Wow. So Kev and I have been disagreeing for about 3 seasons about Arteta, to be fair. He's always stuck by him. He's always believed he'd be the right guy to take us forward, given time. And that's what he's been given. And he came in, I didn't want him. I wanted a proven manager. I wanted names that have CVs attached to it that look blistering. And that's what I felt we need. I felt that we needed experience because we were a mess. Let's have it right. We were an absolute mess after Wenger and Emery had left us. And when he won us the FA Cup, I was willing to give him some time to think, he's won some silverware. Let's see what he can do. And he brought in 2 players that I think have been instrumental still to this day in Gabriel and Partey. And that's something we've needed for like 15 years. Me and Kev were talking about it. We needed a Vieira and Campbell, and we didn't have one since them. And it's been 18 years now since they've gone. So we kind of got attributes that we needed, like a Campbell and Vieira. And I thought that's a really good start. And then I looked at the results, and in 10 games, we'd lost 7, won 1 and drew 2. And I thought, no, I'm done. I can't see this anymore. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, Emery and Wenger were poor, but they weren't this bad. And there's been opportunities, Pete, where we perhaps should have sacked him, could have sacked him, but the board stuck with it. And the one thing I'd say that I've always been given praise with Arteta and the board is what they've done off the pitch. On the pitch, I ain't been a fan. I ain't going to lie. But off the pitch, they've done some really good things in terms of removing the culture. They've got the players together. They've brought in a real implementation of young players that all seem to be on the same page, and they've removed some of the toxic players. Now, what we're seeing this season is all the good work off the pitch is now starting to show on it. That's the biggest progress that I can see, because everyone's together. There's a fan connect. Everybody seems to be understanding where Arsenal are going, and now we're starting to see an attacking style of play, which is something I didn't think we had maybe 18 months ago. Almost a year to the day, we lost to Man City at the Emirates, but nobody went out that stadium crying because we played so well. And that was the turning point for me. And if it wasn't for a few fullbacks and maybe a Thomas Partey getting injured, we might have got Champions League last season. Now we've seen with squads being improved in the summer, all of a sudden, wow, we're a different Arsenal. And we're starting to see what Arteta can do now with everything his way. He's been backed. He's had 400 million to spend. In 4 seasons, they've been patient with him. And this is what's starting to do. And the plan that I always thought we had is now being executed, which I doubted. I didn't think we could. And I'm absolutely buzzing. It helps as well when we have a New Year's Day like we had, because it was a real happy New Year. I mean, when Tottenham lose, I'm always laughing, but I didn't expect everyone else to be dropping points as well. So when I look at what Arsenal are doing right now, 7 points clear, who am I to say that it was never going to work? It's been fantastic. And those that had the patience, fair play, because I didn't have the patience of waiting another 4 years. I'd already waited 18 to win a title. And I just wanted to be in a title race. And it looks like, fingers crossed and touch wood, we might be in one, Pete.
Yeah, well, it certainly looks like it now. You guys are running away with it. And look, Kev, just your opinions on Arsenal's season. It's interesting that you and Dan had different opinions with regards to Arteta, that you've kind of always sort of backed him. You know, what made you always be confident that he would be the man to do what he's currently doing now?
Well, for me, it was, I look at the personnel that Arsenal had. You look at the personnel of 2 years ago, and you look at the personnel now, there's hardly any players left, really, who are prominent in the team. And, you know, you got Mesut Ozil, you got Lacazette there, you got Aubameyang. Those are 3 big players already. You had Kolasinac, you had Mustafi, you had all these players at the club who have got big egos, they're on big contracts, and something wasn't right. You could see we were going into big games and never coming out on top. We were capitulating. Games were over by halftime. And that tells me something ain't right in the dressing room. So you could see it took 2 years for Mikel Arteta to rip it up. We had to pay players to leave, guys. You know, we had to pay them to leave. That tells you how desperate he wanted to change that dressing room and the work ethic and the mentality in the dressing room. Bought younger players, bought some players who the fan base, because the fan base know what it takes. Yeah. They bought some of the players and the fan base were revolting against those players like Ramsdale and Ben White and all these guys, because as far as they're concerned, they want so-called ready-made guys. But it works at some clubs and it doesn't work at others. At Arsenal, we're not gonna be able to buy our way. We're gonna have to be able to buy players and coach them up, and that's what Mikel Arteta's done. This was the litmus test this season regarding it was Mikel Arteta's team. Don't forget, we started last season losing the first 3 games, which was a travesty, which was disgraceful. But over a matter of time, he built the team and the team started to find its way back. This season, it's his team now. Didn't go into the January transfer market last year. Why? Because he knew what he needed. He needed Jesus and he needed Zinchenko, among other things. He brings those 2 main players in who have got the mentality of winners. And look where we are. I think he's done an amazing job.
No, definitely. And look, we can see the turnaround from a Newcastle perspective of Mikel Arteta, what he's done. You know, there's a question that I'm going to bring to both of you guys in a second around sort of Arteta. But you know, Chris, you know, the Arsenal change this season, like they just look absolutely formidable. You know, really, really impressive. What's the one thing that kind of stands out for you, or a player even that stands out for you in that Arsenal team, that kind of sets them apart from everyone else in the Premier League at the moment?
It's funny with Arsenal because I'd struggled to kind of pinpoint one particular player, but I suppose the player who I'd mention now really for me that's really stood up is probably Odegaard. Like, when Odegaard first joined, we knew he was talented, obviously former Real Madrid player, was meant to be, you know, the next hot thing, kind of, he was meant to, you know, he came out of nowhere, didn't he? And he joined Real Madrid, it didn't quite work out for him, and then obviously joined Arsenal. I'm thinking, I wonder what he's going to be like. And certainly this season, like, Odegaard's been fantastic. I think he's been absolutely brilliant. Obviously Saka's come along a lot. Martinelli's come on. It's like I say, it's funny with Arsenal. They've got loads of really good players, but there's probably not one standout player who I'd go, oh, he's the reason why it works. Even like Saliba coming back, he'd been on loan, hadn't he, for a couple of seasons, and he's come in and he looks like an absolute man mountain. He looks really, really good. And getting, as Kev said, getting Zinchenko and Jesus was a fantastic bit of business. Because both players really, they performed well at City, and they were probably unlucky, to not like kind of be in the starting 11 all the time. And that's just the squad City have got, isn't it? But when Arsenal recruited both Zinchenko and Jesus, I was jealous, because I thought they're two really, really good players. And obviously Mikel Arteta will know more about them than most, having probably coached them under Pep. So yeah, I thought they were two really good signings. But Arsenal kind of remind me of us in a way, in the fact that I think it's more a coaching job than just the money. I know it was mentioned before that they've spent 400 million, which is a lot of money. But then if he's been there 3-4 years, it's probably not that much this day and age. But I think it's just the way that Arteta's said, I want to play like this. He's coached the players fantastically, and they're all gelling. They all look like they're fighting together. And it's that team spirit and camaraderie, which I think has made them really stand up this season.
Yeah, look, it's looking like Chelsea are going to spend as much as Arsenal have in 4 years in 2 windows, the way that they're going. So you're absolutely right, Chris. It's not really a lot of money when you span it over that 3 or 4 year period. So it makes it just as much of an even more impressive job that he's done at the club. Now it's a kind of a open question. Now maybe change it slightly. The original question was, for Dan, really, was how did the all or nothing change your perspective of Arteta? But the one thing, in fact, I'll let you answer that question first. Did it change your perspective on him watching that, or did you already have your opinion on him before that?
No, it did change my perspective, but not because of me thinking he was rubbish and then all of a sudden believing he's good. There was a lot more than that I saw in that documentary. But the main thing was every single player is tuned in and focused to what he's saying. Whether he's talking rubbish, he could be talking absolute nonsense for all we know, but they're all listening. And that, for me, shows there's an absolute respect there. And you could see 2 or 3 that weren't really, they're no longer at the club, no longer here. All of them are gone, right? And you could see it in that documentary. The ones they're no longer here. The Pepes, the Aubameyangs, the Lacazettes, the Maitland-Nileses, they've all gone. Yeah. So that to me says something. The other thing that really impressed me was the coaching staff. A lot of people thought they were silent before that documentary. Carlos Kester, superb youngster, sits down 1-to-1 with them, pretty much the same age as them. Really impressive, on board with what Arteta's about. To be fair to him, Josh Kroenke, he's part of the documentary. He looks like he's on board. Edu, Steve Round, they all seem Airport Albert. Can never do his surname, Kev. I'm going to butcher it if I try it, but he's on it as well. And I was really impressed because that, for me, they're all part of it, and it was always about we. It was never about I. The other thing I liked about Mikel Arteta was the Everton game that we lost around Christmas time last year. Walks into the dressing room, doesn't say anything, just walks out. Brilliant, absolutely superb. Oh Christ, he's pissed off of us. And then you see him when we lost to you guys in the second to last game, and he really goes some. He's like, I'm done. Zip it. Now it's your fault. We've lost it. We've blew it. Thanks very much. I'll take the blame, so like I always do, and walks out. They're the sort of things I look at and think, yeah, you got something. You got something about you. So I was impressed.
No, I've got to be honest. I only just watched it for the first time all the way through just before Christmas. Never got a chance to watch it beforehand. And you're absolutely right. On the pitch, you can see the quality. For me, it's what he did behind the scenes. The Aubameyang situation, for me, I think he handled that absolutely perfect. I thought it was really, really well handled. I thought the impact that it made in the squad for the rest of the players, it sent that message through that he's not messing around, that he's the guy in charge. And you could tell the way he was talking and orchestrating with all the other coaching staff and members of the Arsenal team behind the scenes. they knew he was the one in charge. He was making the decisions, and he demanded that from the beginning. I really that saw a different side to me, because you know tactically he's very good. You know he's got a footballing brain. You know he's got all that about him. He likes to play a certain style of football, but that for me told me there was a different side to him, and it goes back to the point. And actually, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about Eddie Howe, and someone was saying about Eddie Howe being too nice, and would Eddie Howe be ruthless? I actually think Eddie Howe's got that in him as well. I think he's not just a good coach, but I think he plays really nice. Whenever you see him in press conferences, like him, both Arteta and Howe, they're both very nice, very friendly, very respectful. You know, you look like they wouldn't say boo to a goose, but actually, I think they're both ruthless, and they will make the decisions that they need to make in order for them to get where they want to get. And I think, you know, obviously Arteta's flying at the moment, had a little bit more time at Arsenal, but I think I see that in Eddie Howe as well. And I just thought, you know, seeing those behind the scene things were really good, really gave me a really good insight with regards to that. But there's a question actually from someone in the chat. It's actually our Loaded Mag member. Well, he's part of our team, Daz, and it's for Kev. And it says, would you have fancied being involved in an all or nothing doc? You know, back in the day when you were playing, how would you have thought? How would you have felt about that if you were offered the opportunity?
Imagine George Graham. I don't think he'd want that, Casey.
Oh, we've lost the volume.
Volume's gone, I think.
George might have loved it. George might have loved it because the focus would have been on him. You know what I mean? Listen, it wouldn't bother me if there was a fly on the wall type thing or whatever. I don't know if you remember, Arsenal were involved in a fly on the wall with a referee mic'd up back in the day. Arsenal played Millwall at Millwall, and the bleeps in that were unbelievable. You know, it was a different football, but it's about winning, and it's about having a culture to win. And you talked about the two young managers who Eddie Howe has experience, but not at a club the size of Newcastle. Newcastle's huge. Mikel Arteta obviously has captained Arsenal, so that gives him an insight. But there still has to be a focus and a ruthlessness to what they do. And you're right, both are very, very ruthless. For me, I don't think it's a problem where you bring cameras in, because the players are still focused on what they've got to do. So I wouldn't mind it.
Interesting. I know we're short on time with yourself, Kev, so I'm going to run through these really quickly. There's a few questions actually, and then I want you to hear some stats before you leave. But the question is, okay, this is from Russ, one of our sponsors. For Kevin, did you ever have a dream move opportunity to sign for the Mighty Mags?
No, not a dream, because they're not a dream team for me. I played for my dream team, which was Arsenal, but I did nearly sign for Newcastle at some stage. It was Kenny Dalglish, you know, when Alan Shearer got injured, and John Dahl Thomason was up front on his own. Kenny Dalglish was manager, and Nottingham Forest. I was at Forest at the time. Nottingham Forest got a call, and there was rumours going around that Newcastle wanted me. They were telling me that, you know, wait by the phone, you know, we're going to speak money and all that kind of thing. So I said, okay, no problem. But it didn't quite materialise, so obviously nothing didn't happen. Would I have liked it? Yeah. As I said, I've got a soft spot for Newcastle type of thing. But the fact it never happened, hey, it's part of life.
Yeah, it always happens here with the transfer windows now. People waiting for moves and stuff, and it never quite materialises. Happens all the time. A couple more questions before we go to stats. 1 second for Kev. From Geordie Toon for Life, a big supporter of the 12th Man channel as well. And for Kevin, if you have played for some massive clubs, obviously Everton, Arsenal, Forest, but which one, hand on heart, is your club? I think you might have already.
Yeah, I've already answered that. I've been an Arsenal fan all my life. I went to my first game at at 7 years old at Highbury, and I was just mesmerised from there. So, I've got real soft spot for Everton and a real soft spot for Nottingham Forest. Everton are in my heart because obviously I captained the club, but Arsenal are my oxygen.
Kev, just to jump in, mate. Sorry, because me mates would kill me if I'd ever asked you this question, Kev. But I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on Frank Lampard? Do you think Everton are going to stay up this season? What are your thoughts on Everton?
I do. I think Everton. I don't think there's, truth for the matter, I don't think there's a lot wrong at Everton. I just think Everton, like a lot of clubs, haven't got the firepower yet. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's been out injured. Frank Lampard's come in. He's kept the club up. He's sorted out that back four. He's sorted out the midfield. And the one thing that they lack, that a lot of clubs down there lack, is scoring goals. You can't just rely on your defensive midfield to try and get you through games if you're not putting the ball away. You're going to come unstuck in the Premier League. They need to address the firepower situation. Dominic Calvert-Lewin come back. But unfortunately, you can't rely on him. They need more firepower. So they have to address that in the window. And I think they will. I think Everton are going to be fine. Like I say, I'm doing the Brighton game tomorrow. I just think the moment Everton address the firepower situation, Everton are going to be fine. No problems.
No, definitely. Look,
and by the way, I think Frank Lampard needs time. He needs to make this team his. Like Arteta made the team his at Arsenal. He's going to need a bit of time to shape this squad and make it his. So, yeah.
Cheers, Gavin.
Right, we're going to get some stats on now, and there's only one way we have our stats, and it's with this man. Like magic, he appears. Double O Stato Keith, how you doing? Welcome to the show tonight. Hope you're well.
Happy New Year, lads. I hope
Happy New Year,
mate.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Look, before Kev goes, just wanted you to throw some stats our way because this is going to be a really, really huge game tomorrow night. But hopefully there's some positivity in there for Newcastle, but I've got a feeling it's going to be tilted slightly towards Arsenal. So what you got for us?
I've got loads of stats here. I've got some head-to-head stats. I've got some stats on players for both teams. And then I've got some stats on some general figures in terms of form for both clubs. But I'll say to Chris and Pete, get strapped in. This is going to be incredibly rocky for Newcastle and Newcastle fans here. So I'll just make a start. The overall record here in the Premier League for Newcastle: played 54, won 11, drawn 10, and lost 33. So more in favour of Arsenal there. Newcastle have lost 18 of their last 20 competitive meetings against Arsenal. Their last away win at Arsenal was 1-0, Andy Carroll header at the Emirates in November 2010. The fixture as well, it produces a lot of goals, but more for Arsenal as well in the Premier League. 90 goals for Arsenal to Newcastle's 43. Arsenal as well have got the better defensive record in the fixture with 28 clean sheets compared to Newcastle's 12 clean sheets. Arsenal have scored in 18 of the last 20 Premier League matches against Newcastle, and they've won 11 home games in a row against Newcastle at the Emirates. The aggregate score of those 11 games, 31 goals for Arsenal, 5 for Newcastle. Arsenal as well, they're on an incredible run here against Newcastle. Just stay with us, lads, stay with us. Arsenal could equal the Premier League record of 29 clean sheets against a particular opponent. against Newcastle. That record is currently Man United against Tottenham. So Arsenal could equal that record tomorrow night. Mikel Arteta's got a really good record in games he's managed against Newcastle. He's won 5 of them out of the 6 he's managed. He's only lost 1 game, which was the game last May. Eddie Howe's record as manager in games against Arsenal, he's managed 13 games, he's won 2, he's drawn 2, and he's lost 9. And in Eddie Howe, he's lost all his 6 games at the Emirates. Aggregate score, 2 goals for Eddie Howe teams, 16 for Arsenal. Moving on to the players, top goal scorers you would have touched on earlier this in the show tonight. Gabriel Martinelli and Martin Odegaard have scored 7 goals each for Arsenal this season. Bukayo Saka with 6 and Gabriel Jesus as well with 5 now. Jesus had a really good start of the season there before getting injured. Arsenal are doing well with the goal assists as well, with Saka with 6 goal assists, Jesus and Odegaard with 5 each. And Martin Odegaard, you touched on earlier how much on fire he is at the minute for Arsenal. He's been involved in 12 goals in the last 13 Premier League games, 7 goals and 5 goal assists. Eddie Nketiah as well has been in great form. He's scored in 3 Premier League games, starts at home, and he's got 11 goals in 11 starts at the Emirates. And moving on to goalkeepers, I'm going to pick it up, lads, don't worry. Nick Pope's got 9 clean sheets compared to Aaron Ramsdale's 7 in the Premier League. Arsenal are on a run of 10 straight league wins at the Emirates, and that goes back to April when they lost to Brighton at home. But Arsenal, from the start of the season, they could win 8 matches in the Premier League for the first time. So you think of the Invincibles, you think of all of the great teams they've had. Well, they could do something they didn't do and win the first 8 games at home this season. Arsenal as well. I don't mean to be an Arsenal fan here, but again, some general stats here. Arsenal have won 14 of 16 top flight games, and every team that's done that in history has gone to win the title, the top flight title. Arsenal as well are the 5th side in English top flight history to earn as many as 43 points from the first 16 games. I'm going to go back to Newcastle here because following their 2-1 away win against Spurs, if Newcastle beat Arsenal at the Emirates tomorrow night, they'll be the first time that they've beaten both North London sides in North London since 2001-2002 season. I think we'll remember that game fondly with Robert and Shearer getting some memorable goals that night at Highbury. And Newcastle as well are looking to win consecutive league games against Arsenal for the first time since the mid-90s. But here I'm just going to end on a bit of a downer here as it's New Year. Newcastle have only won 1 of their opening New Year fixtures of the calendar in the last 10 years, and that was against Stoke. In 2018, they've had 2 draws and 7 defeats in their other 9 New Year fixtures. Sorry, lads. There were some. I did try my best to get some positive stats.
You did. No, I appreciate them. Superb stats as always, Keith. Thank you for that. All I could see, and I think Chris picked up on it as well, the huge smiles from Kev and Dan all the way through that.
Keep going.
He wanted to be with the ball. He was loving it. Oh man, that was a tough listen. But look, hopefully things will start to change as the years go on and we progress. But look, Kev, just before you go, I want you to give your prediction of the score come the end of the game tomorrow night, and look, also a prediction of where Arsenal and Newcastle will finish in the league by the end of the season.
Well, look, I think it's going to be a tight game at the Emirates. I've got to go for Arsenal, but I know it's going to be a very tough game. The game isn't played on paper; it's played on the pitch, and Newcastle have been a match for most teams this season, if not all. So I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal, solely because it's at the Emirates. I think Arsenal can win the league. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to say Arsenal going to win it. I think Arsenal going to invest, and I'm not going to back down on it. If they don't, so be it. I'm wrong. But I want Arsenal to win it. And I want Newcastle to get top 4. I think Newcastle will finish 4th in the league. And we will all be on a podcast, I'm sure, come the end. Cock a hoop, I'm sure of that.
Definitely. We will sort that out for sure. If we finish in the top 4 and you guys win the league, we'll all get together, whether it's here or whether it's on Dan's 12th man, and we will just absolutely have a party because we wouldn't have expected that. But look, Kev, I know you've got to go. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and join. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers, guys. Happy New Year to you, and all the very best for the whole season. Dan, I'll see you at the back post.
Yeah, man. See you soon, Casey.
Cheers.
Take care, bro.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye,
Thanks, Kev.
Cheers, Kev.
Bye.
First, I've got to say, Dan, massive thanks to you for sorting out to allow us to have Kev on the show. It's we don't get ex-players on very often on Loaded Mag NUFC, and to get his perspective alongside yours with regards to Arsenal and Newcastle is absolutely top stuff. So.
You're welcome, man. He's a great guy. He'll always have time for everyone. So, yeah, absolute pleasure, man. And he loves coming on and chatting football with everyone. So you're welcome, mate.
Definitely. Now I know we've only got a short period of time with you as well, because I think you've got 3 shows in the night tonight.
Yeah, it's mad. It's like this festive period has gone mad. I can't fit enough time in the day. It's mad, isn't it? But there we go.
It's because you've gone too good now, Dan. That's it, isn't it?
Everybody wants to talk to us now at top of the league. Do you know what I mean? We were irrelevant for like 15 years. But there we go.
Lap it up, mate. Enjoy every second is what someone else said to us the other day. Lap it up and just enjoy it. But look, there's actually a number of questions coming through. I was going to go to tactics board. I'll come to it very, very, very quickly just before I let you go. But there are a number of questions in there that I think we didn't have time to ask Kev for his opinion on them as well. But one here, it says we were linked with Nketiah this summer, just gone, with him being on a free transfer at the time. And I like the look of him, says Leon. With Jesus getting injured, a lot of people doubted him. Do you think he could be the striker at a top club? I'll change that slightly. Do you think he could be the main man for you at Arsenal?
No, I don't think he can be the main man at Arsenal, but I think he can be part of the squad. I've never had any issue with Eddie Nketiah being part of the squad. I have an issue with him being part of the first 11 long term. I think he's a player that, rightly so, has come in and proved why he can do a job, because he did it at the back end of last season, and at the moment he's got 2 in 2. But I've seen a lot of his game that's changed this season, Pete, in terms of him dropping off and being the tip of that diamond of 4. And that's what we're seeing now with Partey at the base, Ødegaard and Xhaka either side. And Lacazette was that tip last season, but just didn't move. He just wasn't that type of player. And we're now seeing the energy from Eddie Nketiah and a little bit of intensity. But also the guy's a bit of a menace in the box. He's a poacher. He's got similar attributes to those of Jermaine Defoe, Ian Wright. I don't think he's going to be as good as those two, but he's definitely got those attributes, and I think that he can be a nuisance. And he definitely is more of a fox in the box than a poacher. Gabriel Jesus does so much more than him, and I don't really think anybody expected him or there to not be a drop-off when Jesus got injured. There has been still. But actually, what I've been really impressed with is the fact that we haven't, in the last 2 games anyway, missed Jesus like I thought we would, because Eddie's actually done a half-decent job. The other thing that's helped him, Eddie, is he's got 2 absolute machines either side of him that are 21 years old that just look absolutely sensational. I'm looking at Saka and Martinelli and I'm thinking, what are you two going to be like when you're 25, 26? Like, you are absolutely so good. Like, if I was Newcastle, I'd be looking at these two thinking, answers on a postcard, please. How are we going to keep these two quiet? They are ridiculously good. So, you know, I honestly think it's a flip of a coin for how many people like Saka and how many people like Martinelli. Mate, I don't care. The pair of them are absolutely superb. So for me, I think Eddie Nketiah could do a job at somebody else as a striker in the Premier League. I do believe that. But as far as Arsenal are concerned, winning titles, I'm just not so sure that he's the guy. But he's done great so far and he deserves a lot of credit.
No, I would agree. He surprised me. I thought there'd be a bigger drop-off than what I've seen. I tell you what, though, watching that game against West Ham, that turn for his finish was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was superb.
Little spin off the ball. That is not easy. That is not easy. That is a top level striker type of swivel to create that space from the left side of his body to the right to spin and to be able to hit that ball. I just watched that and thought, wow.
If that was Haaland or Harry Kane, people would be going mad, wouldn't they?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, outstanding finish. Yeah,
didn't get spoken about enough, that did it? Because when I watched it back, I was like, why is no one going mad over that? Like the turn was just top level.
You don't see strikers doing that. You don't see not anymore. You don't see strikers do that anymore. It's like it was just an unbelievable finish, swivel, everything about it. A couple of more questions for you, Dan. Leon's put another one on, good one actually. Do the Arsenal lads feel a tad disrespected? 7 points clear, and every pundit is dismissing their chances and firmly believe City will win the league. Great question, Leon.
No and yes. I like it when people say Arsenal can't win the league because there's no pressure on us. I hate it when everyone says that Arsenal are going to win the league because then we crumble. At the same time, I do feel that there needs to be a little bit more respect on Arsenal's name. A lot of the pundits we see, I actually really like them, particularly on Sky Sports News. I like Gary Neville, Carragher, Richards, Keane, Souness. I think they've all got some of the best in the business. One thing I will say is that they are very, very, apart from Carragher, to be fair, a bit of a flip-floppy with it, particularly Gary Neville. I have no idea sometimes what planet he's on. Unless he's talking about Manchester United, he's half decent. But when it comes to Gary Neville, don't see a plan at Arsenal. No idea what they're trying to do. Not really sure. Can't see it working. But I totally get what Ollie's trying to do at Man United. Complete delusion. Don't understand what he's talking about there. So I do think that sometimes the pundits are living in a bit la-la land when it comes to Arsenal. I think they've enjoyed the last 15 years laughing at us. Fair enough. I probably would if it was Man United and Man City and West Tottenham particularly, which are easy to laugh at, to be fair, so don't win anything. But when you look at it, seriously, I feel like the pundits are hating the fact that Arsenal are relevant again. They hate it. Yeah. They liked us down there. Let's put Arsenal on a Friday night, first game of the season against Palace. Let's all laugh. Oh, shit, they won. Let's make sure, I'll tell you what, let's big up. They won't beat Liverpool at home. Oh, shit, they did. North London derby, go on Tottenham. Oh, they've beaten them as well. Bloody hell. When do they play Man City? Quick. They actually can't wait. They cannot wait for it. It's weird. It's like some weird obsession. The minute that Arsenal went out with the players at COVID, Arsenal was a disgrace, absolute disgrace. Liverpool did it. Oh, it's a shame they got players out COVID. They all just want to pile in on Arsenal, it seems, these pundits. I don't quite get it. The minute we lose to Brentford first game of last season, it's brilliant laughter, isn't it? Superb. When it's another team, they're like, that was a bit unlucky, really, that, wasn't it? You think, hang on, wait, what's going on here? What is actually happening? So it's not all the pundits. Some of the pundits, I think Michael Richards is great. I know he's a gooner, so obviously he likes Arsenal. And Carragher's had a lot of respect for Mikel Arteta. Some of them, I'm not so sure. And particularly pundits that have a link to Tottenham Hotspur, without saying too many names. Jamie O'Hara can't stand the fact that we're top of the league. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant to listen to every day. You know, Tim Sherwood crying on Sky Sports, Jamie O'Hara crying because Conte's going to leave and Spurs are in the mud and Arsenal are top of the league, 7 points clear. Listen, you just got to laugh at it and love it. There is a bit of disrespect there, but I quite like the fact that we're relevant again and that we're getting on everyone's nerves because it means we're doing something right.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you made some great points about the pundits. You are absolutely right. Just two things before I let you go, and I'm going to put the tactics board up just to get your response with regards to this, because I've set the team out that you think Arsenal are going to play with. I hope that's right in terms of how it's set up. Two things from you, Dan, before I let you go. Where are you going to win the game? And your prediction for the game tomorrow night. So where do you think Arsenal can win the game against Newcastle?
So the obvious answer is the one I'm not going to give. A lot of people think, because I've bigged them up at Saka and Martinelli, that they're going to win us the game. Listen, I could be right. In terms of the area of the pitch that's going to win us the game is our midfield. Our midfield trio has been absolutely outstanding. I love Bruno Guimaraes, but Thomas Partey has been ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous this season. Martin Odegaard, Chris already mentioned how good he's been. He actually got 7 goals and 4 assists last season. He's already got 7 goals and 5 assists in 15 games. This guy's been absolutely amazing. season. He really has been, and I think he's been absolutely key. But the guy I've got to big up the most is what, for me, the player of the season for Arsenal, and that's Granit Xhaka, a guy I never really saw for the last 6 years as an Arsenal man. But my God, what a progressive performance he's had this season in a position that's definitely suited him more. He's never been a defensive midfielder, but Arsene Wenger and Unai Emery believed he was. Mikel Arteta's worked out now that he's not, and he's put him into a position where he's no longer a liability. There's no longer any errors from goals. His discipline's better. His play is better. He's part of our link-up play. And our trio now looks superb in midfield. And as much as I'm a fan of Bruno Guimaraes, I feel like Longstaff and Willock, that Ødegaard, Xhaka and Partey can get the better of them and win that midfield battle, and that will be able to thread the passes through to Saka and Martinelli, who I believe at the moment are unstoppable. So that's where I think we'll win the game in midfield. And, you know, I look at that Newcastle side and think it's got some unbelievable players in it. Someone today on my channel wound me up and said, Kieran Trippier's out. Whee! Turns out he's only got 4 yellow cards, not 5. So
that did a number of Newcastle fans, actually. Everyone thought that was the case. And
didn't he get a yellow card in the League Cup and it don't count or something?
Yeah,
right, there you go. So I was sat there thinking, oh, bro, they're going to play because your other right back's out, and it started getting quite funny. And then someone put, yeah, I've just checked it. He's actually playing. I was like, brilliant. Cheers for that. So, because I think he's class, by the way. He's been brilliant, Trippier. So that's what I think. Did you ask me for a prediction as well, Pete? Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I honestly believe this is going to be one of the most high-scoring games this season. I'm going to go Arsenal 3, Newcastle 2. I believe this is going to be a cracker. I really do. I don't see how this is going to be a 1-0. I just don't. Now I've said that, it'll probably be 0-0. But I think it'll be a cracker. I really do. I think both teams have got the ability to score goals. The stat that Keith read out in terms of clean sheets, forget that. Neither of these teams are keeping clean sheets, in my opinion. I think this will be a really good game. Newcastle against Man City, absolutely superb 3-3. They've given some big teams really, really good games already. We saw you beat Spurs. You've given Man City a game. I expect you to give Arsenal a game at the Emirates, but I do think we'll have enough to win it, and I'm going to go for a 3-2 win. And do you know what? I'll take it because I just want to win this game.
And that's what we're doing to teams, Chris and Keith. We
are
making teams just panic to just make sure they get points on the board. But no, Dan, massive respect. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. I think I might be joining you later for a short period on one of the shows. Yeah. But just plug your show before you leave.
Cheers, mate. Well, listen, thank you for having me on, and it's a pleasure. And I hope, honestly, after this result, you have a fantastic season. But I've already spoken to you about that, Pete, and I think you will get top 4. I really do. I think you might even get 3rd, but let's not get too carried away. I do think you'll have a great season. If you do want to come and follow me, you can come and follow me on socials. It's at DanArsenal87. And if you can come and follow me and hit a subscribe, I'm on the way to 7K on my channel, which is Football's 12th Man podcast that you'll see myself and Pete on regularly, weekly. So if you can come and do that as well, that would be amazing. And Pete, thank you so much. Chris and Keith, absolute pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Top man, you go. And I'll speak to you soon. Best of luck,
Cheers,
mate.
Pete. Take care, boys.
Take care, Dan.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, mate. You too. Cheers, mate.
Great to have Dan on. Absolute top man. And obviously Kev earlier on in the show. Top Arsenal guest. Really, really good. Know their stuff. And great to think about. All things Arsenal and building to the big game. Look, we've still got. Oh, 1 second. We did have. And then it disappeared. But we did have the screen up with the team. Now, I wanted to come to you guys and quickly touch on this because Dan mentioned that he felt that the Arsenal midfield was going to win the game. And I've put a team there that I think is going to start for Newcastle. That's starting 11. Firstly, I'll come to you, Chris. Do you agree with that starting 11? What would you change? And what are your thoughts about his midfield alongside ours? Do you think it's going to be a close one, or do you think it's going to be, as Dan says, they're just going to overpower us?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Pete. Funnily enough, when you put the lineups up, obviously that's what Dan believes it'll be, and that you've put on the 11 that you believe it'll be. For me, I don't know, Pete. I personally think, especially after what Dan was saying, and also looking at the team, I think you've got to put Joe Linton in the middle. I really do. I think you've got to put Joe Linton in the middle, and I wouldn't mind maybe putting Maxi out on the left. Get Maxi on the left and get him running at Ben White, because I'm thinking to myself,
So is that Willock off, that not starting?
No, I would put Bruno in the holding, and I would put Willock in the right next to Joe Linton. Plenty of legs, bit of power. Willock will cause a few problems. Bruno's dictating it at the back. We know we like him in the 8, but I think we need to be sensible in this game. And I'm thinking Alan St. Maximin running up against Ben White, who, as we all know, is a natural centre-back. I know he plays very well at right back, and he's probably more than used to it, but let's ask him some questions of him. Then obviously we've got Almiron running at Zinchenko. I just feel the middle, I think you need Joe Linton in there because he doesn't give anyone time. He's very powerful. He's strong. He travels well with the ball. I think having Joe Linton on the left, I feel like we'd be losing a bit of bite in midfield. And it really wouldn't surprise me, Pete, if we changed it up a touch, because I'm also looking at the left back position and I'm thinking, is Saka and Bain a real mismatch? I know Bain's probably our, preferred left back. I understand that, but I'm thinking, I know Matty Target's injured. I mean, we probably will have to play Big Dan Bain there, but
you got Jamal Lewis. I mean, do you throw him into such a big game and play him? He's more of a progressive left back, and I think we talked about it with the lads, the loaded lads on our chat, and we talked about do we go with a more progressive left back? Do we push someone on that's going to attack more? And Jamal Lewis would be the only option now. So that's your option. But it's an interesting one. But I do agree with you, Chris. This here is a mismatch. It is. Like, anything in the air, Burn's going to win it. But Burn's going to have to be good on the ball because Saka presses high and he presses quick. And he's very, very nippy. You know how quick he is. And he wins a lot of the balls back high up the pitch. So Burn's got to be really careful about this area here and where he plays the ball and how he uses the ball. But when Saka's running at him, that's when I worry because, we know in the World Cup, for example, he can win penalties. He can win free kicks high up the pitch. He can beat players on his right, on his left. He's so quick and in top form at the moment. I do worry about that. I do worry less about this area. I know we bigged up Martinelli. I was at the Emirates last season and Martinelli did score coming on in this position. However, we didn't have Kieran Trippier playing. And I think the experience of Kieran Trippier will, to a point, keep Martinelli quiet, just like he did with Harvey Barnes at the King Power. I think he's got the ability to keep him quiet. But for me, that's that area there that I do worry about. Is there? Go on, Chris. Go on.
I was going to say, Pete, what do you think about the midfield three? I mean, I'm not disagreeing with what you've said because there's a possibility that will be the midfield three. But I'm just thinking in terms of, I don't know, like Longstaff, it wasn't his best performance last game, as we know. Eddie Howe, we know he doesn't like to shake up winning teams. Does the fact that we didn't win last game mean that it's time for him to now go, right, Maxi, unleash him and just give him that 90 minutes or at least give him 60, 70 minutes and then obviously make a sub if needed? Do we need to pose more questions to Arsenal? I think, do you know what I'm saying? I worry about that midfield three. Up against Odegaard, Partey, and Xhaka because they, as Dan said, that is a really strong three.
Look, I haven't got an issue with this team, that midfield, and with ASM starting. I've got no issue with it. If it was me, I'd be picking that. That would be the team that I would go for. However, the only reason I went for Longstaff in and Joe Linton on the left is purely for structure and balance within the team. And when you go into the Emirates, you don't need it for the whole 90 minutes, but you'll need it for at least 60, 70 minutes where you've got strong balance and structure to your team. Because what you don't want, and this is no disrespect to ASM, is ASM going forward here and then Odegaard and Saka exploiting this space here and getting a goal, because it's quite clear that Eddie Howe sets up his team with a structure to ensure that ASM doesn't come back here. He has improved in doing that, but the structure of the team is about him staying up here, that if we win the ball comes to the left and he's then isolating the right back or the other centre back here on a one-on-one situation. That's what the structure of the team is. Whether we can get away with doing that at the Emirates against Arsenal, top of the league, is a different thing. Now, if he goes with XM, what I will say is it's a bold move. And I won't say it's a bad move. I'll say it's a bold move from Eddie Howe. And it's a bold move that could quite well pay off, because as we saw, and I'll get your thoughts on this as well, Keith, in a second, as we saw against Leeds, when you have a team that are just going to sit back and say, right, try and break us down, we're not as good as doing that. We talked about that on the review show. However, when you know for a fact that Arsenal are going to come and attack us, that's what leaves gaps open, just like we did at Anfield. We exploited gaps because they pushed men forward. We know we can win the ball high up. You've talked about it, Chris. Willock wins the ball high up. Almiron, who we haven't really talked much about, wins the ball high up. Wilson will cause problems. Wilson has to start. I don't care how fit he is. I don't care if he can give us 60, 70 minutes. He has to start.
Agree.
Joe Linton, I agree with you. We miss his interceptions in the middle. We miss his physicality. Him and Partey are going to have battles. There's no doubt about it. They are going to collide, and it's going to be great to see. Bruno, we know what we can do in that midfield, and there's a structure there, and there's a quality, and I just think that those guys can withhold the midfield. Physicality against Odegaard, I think Joe Linton's got the better of him, but is he going to give away free kicks? Is he going to get beaten by special quality football? I don't know. But Bruno will get time on the ball here. Can he exploit spaces into here, link into here with these three as that little triangle there again? That's going to be the key.
Pete, just before you move on to Keith, just something that caught my eye this morning, which I wasn't expecting. I was on the William Hill app, and I was looking, I was looking at the odds, on first goal scored, correct score, stuff like that. Who do you think the favourite to score for Newcastle is tomorrow, according to William Hill? It's not Callum Wilson, by the way.
Oh, it has to be Almiron, surely. Has to be.
Alexander Isak. And I thought, hang on, like, because Eddie Howe's kind of played it down. He's fine. He's all right. But imagine he starts him tomorrow. Imagine he puts Alexander Isak in that left wing position. Yeah, there you go. Life goals said it.
Top stuff.
And I thought,
again.
Yeah, just because Eddie Howe likes to keep everything all under board, doesn't he? And we're all going, oh, he's back in January, because he said, didn't he? He's fine. He started training, blah blah blah. And I just thought, just imagine curveball. He just goes bang. He's been saving him for this Arsenal game, because Arteta's not going to be expecting that.
That would be a huge lift for everybody, the club, the players, the fans. That would give everybody a lift. And I tell you what, it would get Arsenal worried that if he's back, that would be massive. And having him come on if Wilson plays 60, 70 minutes, and then Isak comes on for the last 20, 15, 10, whatever it is, that would be a huge, huge positive, and not just for the Arsenal game, going into the rest of January and beyond, having him back in the team. Interesting. Great point, and something to keep an eye on. That is for sure. He is back in training, so who's to say that he's not ready to go? We know it in years gone by, the likes of Dyer and Genius and one or two other players that we've had that are just naturally fit, that all they need to do is be physically fit, muscle tears, hamstrings, whatever, be physically fit to go, they can just play. So really, really, really interesting. Keith, your thoughts on the structure of the game, where the game could be won. Do you agree with that setup?
Yeah, I think certainly the midfield, Arsenal's midfield, is definitely a concern. Also agree as well with the points raised about Saka and Burn as well. I think pace-wise there could be it is a bit of a worry. And the points raised earlier as well about, certainly putting the SM on. I think the game at St. James's at the end of last season, there were problems, weren't there? You caused problems. And why not bring that back, for White? And I think last season, Bruno linking well with Joe Linton, and Joe Linton providing the bite, it's certainly the best that I remember Joe Leyton, and when he really came into that form. And I just think that'll offer a lot. That experience and that bite in the midfield will offer a lot more than perhaps Longstaff would in this particular game at the Emirates. Joe will be fired up, and that'll be for the team really. So why not just change it slightly, just tweak it slightly for this game? If it's the difference between getting a point, not getting a point, then why not go for it and make those slight tweaks for this game?
Yeah, well, why not? It's going to be a really interesting one. I'm really looking forward to this with regards to the setup and how things work out. But let's wait for the team news to come in. What was interesting that Foxy put in there, Gabriel to give a penalty away. Well, if anything's to go by last season, Wilson should have had a penalty against him at the Emirates in that game because he ran straight through on goal. He was literally pulling his shirt. And Wilson managed to get a shot away, but it should have been given a penalty even before that. So one thing to keep an eye on, if there's one striker that can disrupt a centre-back pairing, and let's face it, they're a very, very good centre-back pairing in Saliba and Gabriel, it's Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson knows how to ruffle feathers. We need him back in the team ASAP because we know what he can give. We know how good he is. I'd back Callum Wilson all day to score at the Emirates tomorrow. That is for sure. Right, some questions, boys. Not necessarily game related, but just one or two questions that have just kind of popped up. That I'll come to in just a second. I want to get your thoughts on this actually, because we've talked about it on the loaded chat, but the Golden God said Leicester City interested in Dubravka. Chris, I'll come to you because I think you were surprised as anybody when it was announced yesterday that Dubravka was coming back on loan. Do you and to be fair, you raised it. What do you think about the whole Dubravka situation and the fact that he might well be linked to Leicester City?
Yeah, I think it's just odd, isn't it? I mean, when Kasper Schmeichel left Leicester for Nice, we all just assumed, Leicester are after the keeper, and obviously Ward has stepped up. He had a really shaky start, but he seems to have settled down a bit now. He looks a bit more comfortable, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Leicester don't still need or want a number one. And my understanding, and tell me if I'm wrong here, is that Dubravka signed for Man United until the end of the season with a recall option in January. Now, we've activated that recall option and he's come back. Now, you don't activate the recall, in my opinion, unless it's because you're getting rid of him. Because you've got there, haven't you? Pope, Darlow, Karius, Gillespie, and now obviously Dubravka. So you've got 5. Now, I don't think they're in any hurry. And I've always said this, Pete. I know it'll probably do your head in because I say it all the time. I don't think they're in any hurry to get rid of Mark Gillespie. He'll be on very, very low wages. I don't even think he's registered in the squad. He's just there, just in case the very worst happens. Yeah. Very much a squad player. Carl Darlow could be on his way out. Who knows? Maybe they'll be looking to move Carl Darlow on. I know that for Karius, there was talks of there being a 2-year contract on the table. For me, from what I've seen, obviously I don't watch him every day in training, but from what I've seen, Karius is worthy of a contract. If you can get him on low wages for a couple of seasons to come in, I would prefer Karius on the bench over Darlow, if I'm being honest. So why bring Martin Dubravka back into that mix? Why? So then you've got three keepers there, 2 potentially very unhappy in Karius and Dubravka, that they're not starting. I just don't see why you do that and then have Darlow and then have Gillespie. So for me, I think Dubravka will move on. Will it be to Leicester? Who knows? People are putting 2 and 2 together with Maddison, with Tielemans. That could just be us putting 2 and 2 together. But I think Dubravka is moving somewhere. Whether it's Leicester or not, I don't know. But I think he's on his way.
What do you think, Keith? Do you agree with Chris? Do you think he's been brought back to move on? It happens. Teams do it all the time. They'll recall a player from a loan to then sell them on elsewhere. Do you think that's the case, or do you see it slightly differently?
I think there could be something in it. It just seems a bit bizarre that Newcastle now seem to have I don't want to say embarrassment of riches, but they just seem to have, like, as Chris has listed, up to 5 keepers there at the club now. and Dubravka must be way down the pecking order. I mean, we had this discussion earlier in the season, didn't we? Where, and on some of the other podcasts that Dubravka could be used as like a make weight, and you could sort of like, for the Madison deal, and you could sort of like, I think there was still some money outstanding on the Perez deal with Leicester and Newcastle. Could that come into it? Maybe there might be some, but let's just. I think it's an interesting discussion to have. I definitely think he could be going somewhere. I don't see him come back to Newcastle to sit on the bench. Pope's playing too well. 9 clean sheets. The team defensively are so much stronger this season. He's not going to be happy being 3rd or 4th choice. I mean, here's a question for you lads: If Pope is rested at the weekend in the FA Cup, who plays? Who would be your thoughts and your choice to be, the keeper for Newcastle?
You go first, Pete.
I wouldn't have Dubravka. I'll be honest with you. My thoughts on Dubravka are left in the summer. Great goalkeeper for the club. He did a brilliant job for us. Really, really liked him as a goalkeeper. But the way in which he left the club, I didn't like. And so for me, my thoughts are there. I wouldn't play him. I would look to sell him on if I could and get some money for him. That's just my personal opinion. I would have Karras. Personally, I wouldn't drop Pope. I'd play my strongest goalkeeper, my strongest team, even against Sheffield Wednesday, because we've got the ability of playing 1 game a week. We can continually play as strong a team as we possibly can. Pope should be starting, but if Pope wasn't playing, I'd play Karras. Darlow needs to leave for me. He spent too long at the club. Dubravka, I wouldn't have back in the sticks again for me. That's just my opinion. Chris, what do you think?
Completely agree. If it was my choice to start the cup match, I'd have Cardiff in it all day. I think Darlow needs to go. Dubravka shouldn't play for the club again, and that's not being bitter or funny about it. Like, fantastic servant, had some great times here at Newcastle, but I think he burnt his bridges the way he left. I just don't think there was any need for it, and it was quite funny reading his reply. When he was his welcome back message. It was all he said all the right things, and it was good timing in terms of him putting the message out. But I didn't believe a word of it. Didn't believe a word of it.
I was going to say, when you said, Chris, he's saying all the right things, I don't think he was, because I think it felt forced.
Massively. But someone's told him to say that. Yeah, he's saying it because he's been told to say it. He doesn't believe it.
I don't even think he said it. I think it's been out. I think that stuff that comment that he put on Instagram, I think that was put out by his team, not by him. Because if you've followed Martin Dubravka on anything, on any socials when he's played for Newcastle, that's not how he speaks when he talks about the club. That was not a Martin Dubravka statement. That was a statement written for him, that's been put out for him to save grace. He did not want to come back to Newcastle. He wanted to stay at Man United. We've called him back, hopefully, and actually it's been confirmed by The Guardian, who have reported that Leicester are interested in Martin Dubravka. May well be that they've brought him back to sell him on, because he needed 2 more appearances for Man United. I think 2 or 3 more appearances to trigger a £5 million deal. He was never going to get that. Never ever going to get that. It was never going to be the case that he was going to get that sort of playing time in order to trigger that $5 million. Man United haven't got much money as it is right now. They're not going to pay $5 million for Martin Dubravka. No way. So Newcastle, I think, have gone, you know what, forget it. Get him back, let's sell him on, and likely to be the case. So, yeah. Ed Aarons, understand that Leicester are interested in signing Martin Dubravka this month after Newcastle terminated his loan. Put that out there. That's what's going on at the moment. So let's wait and see. I'm sure on the Full Early Transfer Show this week we'll be talking about that and many others. But look, we'll leave it there with regards to transfer talk and various other things. Lots more in the chat. So many others are put in there. You think Keith's talked about Cristiano Ronaldo. I'd rather not talk about that, if I'm honest with you. We'll talk about that on Thursday. Jimmy Watts put on about Alan Varela. Varela, should I say. Apparently we're putting an 18 million bid for Varela, the midfielder. Interesting one on that as well. Truls has put on there about the Ronaldo clause in his contract.
Weird, isn't it?
Strange. I'm not going to get into it now. We'll talk about it on the Full Loaded Transfer Show, because I want to get Gordon's views on that, as well as any other guests that join us for the Full Loaded Transfer Show. But look, fantastic show tonight. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in. And as Lisa, our Spanish. Oh no, it's okay.
Go for it, mate. Sorry.
We had 200 in the chat tonight watching the show, which was fantastic. Absolutely brilliant views, and thank you for tuning in. But make sure on your way out, as we start to wrap up the show, click that like button, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. We've got, I think, around 70 or just under 70 now away, so we're getting ever closer to that 5k. Just come and join us, click that subscribe, and come and join the Loaded family. That is for sure. Look, plenty of other things going on with the channel. We've got the reaction show coming on Wednesday. We've got the Fully Loaded Transfer Show, which we'll give you more information about on Thursday. Lots and lots to discuss, lots and lots to talk about on the channel, as always. But look, just before I go to sponsors, boys, predictions tomorrow night. What do we think is going to be the score at the end of the game? Chris, I'll come to you first.
I've not been looking forward to this, Pete. I think I'm going to disappoint a lot of people. I was thinking about it before I came on, and then when big Kevin Campbell spoke, that was it. Then I thought I'm going to have to say it. I think we're going to get beat 2-1 tomorrow. I don't like it. I don't want it. But I think we'll get beat 2-1 tomorrow. But do you know what? What everyone's got to realise, and I'm sure they will, it won't be like the Leeds game. Even if that does happen, I'm still going to be thinking, do you know what? We've lost 2 games this season, and that's away to Liverpool and away to Arsenal. So I can live with that. Do you know what I mean? I'm just trying to be realistic. Do I want us to win? Obviously. Can we win? Yeah. But I just don't know. I just think the form Arsenal are in at the moment. I expected a far more difficult game for them against Brighton, but they managed to put 4 goals past Brighton. Don't get me wrong, we're more than capable of scoring. That's why I'm saying the 2-1. But hey, wouldn't it be fantastic if we kept a clean sheet at the Emirates? Just imagine that.
Well, when you got Big Sven at the back.
Well, this is it. Weirdly, I'm not concerned about Nketiah at all. I think Shard and Botman, between them, will have him boxed off. It's Martinelli and Saka, particularly Saka. That's what's worrying me.
When you've got Botman at the back, Isak in attack, Bruno in the middle, anything's possible.
Anything is possible. It's more than possible.
You are absolutely right. Keith, your score prediction, are we back on the fence this week, or are we off the fence on the other side? What are we getting from you?
Question after Saturday's match, I was disappointed I came off the fence, and I wish I hadn't. But I'll just say one thing about the Newcastle song. We need to get Pope into that song, don't we, really? One way or another. But yeah, just sort of echoing sort of Chris's points there. It is a worry for me. This fixture is always one of the fixtures I dread, as well as City away, Liverpool away, Arsenal away. I just hate that fixture, because of all the goals and everything that were in the stats earlier. The midfield worries me, I have to say. Arsenal's midfield, I look at Newcastle and I say, yes, there's quality with Bruno, and I just don't think there's enough compared to Arsenal's midfield. There's even, Xhaka's been getting in with lots of assists as well, 4 assists, and Saka as well, playing brilliantly. He scored in the fixture at the Emirates last year. So I can see this going two ways. You know, it could be a tale of the two keepers. It could be a 0-0. But again, my realistic head coming on here, this run cannot go on forever. And it has been a great run. It's been 12 unbeaten, which I think is the best run that Newcastle have had since the mid-90s and the late 90s. So this run will come to an end at some point. And I'm hoping that might just, if it was to come to an end tomorrow, I hope it would just be a narrow defeat, maybe a 2-1. And Newcastle would score and have the moments in the game. Then I wouldn't be as disappointed, because through the years we've had some terrible results down there, haven't we? Like 2-0s, where literally it's been shooting practice. And so I think I'm going to go a narrow win for Arsenal. Maybe a 1-0, maybe a 2-1. But we'll have a day against Arsenal away at the Emirates one day. As somebody quite right pointed out, stats there earlier, stats are there that be broken. And one day we'll have another day, just like the Andy Carroll win, and just like the 3-1 down at the Emirates in 2001. We will have a day down there one day.
Yeah, nearly 13 years ago, I think it was, last time we won. Andy Carroll header 1-0 at the Emirates. Could it happen again? For sure. Do I think we're going to lose the game tomorrow? I don't think so. I think we're at least going to take a point. I personally think it's kind of head and heart. My heart saying I think we're going to win 2-1. My head, I'm thinking 2-2. They might get a late goal, but I think it'll be some point in the game that we'll be winning. How long that is for, I don't know, but I think we'll be winning in the game at some point. I'm going in confident. Why not? Why not be confident about Newcastle United? Forget the Leeds game. They came to take a point. They sat 11 men behind the ball. Arsenal aren't going to do that. And when teams don't do that, we exploit them. And let's face it, and we always remember, teams always underestimate Newcastle United until they play against us. So let's wait and see. Lots of you in the chat have put your predictions in. Chris Banks has gone 2-0 Newcastle. Dugan family has gone 3-2 win. Bring back the old Boxing Day memories. Tom Dixon's gone Almiron to score the winner. Foxy has gone a 2-0 win. Early Wilson penalty, defend lead, and hit them on the break last 10. Jacob Murphy, Jesus Christ. Jacob Murphy. Jacob Murphy.
It's a bit on the sauce.
Yeah, it must be. Jesus, man.
Hope you're right. Hope you're right.
I'd say Jacob Murphy last 10 to hit the post, maybe, but stick it in the net.
He normally to a season, and when he does score, they're memorable. Can you remember Wolves away a few seasons ago?
Yeah, he scored a nice little dink as well. It was a consolation mine, but at the Etihad a few years ago as well. I remember that. Great show, lads. We'll go for a 2-1 win tomorrow. Mad Mag Mark. Senk has gone for a 2-0 Newcastle win. Tom Dixon's changed it now. I'm going for 1-1. Wilson to score. 1 minute, yeah, now Miron to score the winner, and now he's gone for a 1-1 draw. Simon's gone for a 1-0 smash and grab. Woodeye has gone for a 2-0 tune. And Gary, welcome Gary to the chat. He's gone for a 1-1 draw. Very, very interesting.
Pete, do you think, and Keith as well, do you think, well, in fact, I'll ask Keith a separate question. Do you think that the first goal is going to be key tomorrow? And what I wanted to ask Keith was, Keith, again, putting you on the spot here, mate, when was the last time Newcastle went behind in a match? Or Pete, do you remember? Because I'm just thinking, if we go behind, I mean, there's more enthusiasm, there's more, there's more chance of us fighting back, is what I'm saying. But I can't actually. I'm thinking now off the top of my head when the last time was that we went behind.
Was it Bournemouth or something earlier?
Man City.
Yeah,
Man City.
Yeah,
because we hit back.
Yeah,
and then we scored 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did. We went 1-0 behind against Bournemouth, and Isaac got the equaliser from the spot. But yeah, it was Man City.
Yes, that one as well.
Well, we do seem to
weirdly, I think if we score
on and
first,
better.
I think we get something. If we score first, we'll get something. If they score first, I don't know. It's game on then, isn't it? It's
Both
whether
those,
we come back.
both those games were at St James's though at home, weren't they?
Yeah.
We haven't really seen Newcastle go a goal behind away and how they respond. I don't think yet this season.
Mm.
You know,
if we are going to go 1-0 behind against Arsenal, it needs to be early on in the first half. We need to give Arsenal that sense of security that they're 1-0 up to them, they're comfortable. For me, I think that.
Oh, Wolves, yeah. People are putting in the chat here, Wolves. We were there, Pete, weren't we, for Wolves?
Was that before Man City? That was after.
that was just.
Was it the week after? Was it the week after?
Yeah,
Remember, ASM got injured.
Yeah.
And then we didn't see him after that.
Oh no, well that's true. Actually, yeah, we didn't see him, and he caused chaos, didn't he, at City?
Yeah.
So yeah, it must have been.
So I just think we need to. If they're going to score, they score early, because Arsenal are going to come out the traps. We either hit them first or they hit us. Do we have the ability to hold on if we score early? I don't know. I think we probably need to go 1 or 2-0 up. 2-0 up.
I think as well. I think because Emirates still fairly new. It's only about 15, 16 years old as a stadium. I think apart from the Andy Carroll headed winner, I think Newcastle might have only scored once, like first in that fixture. I think Dyer and a 1-1 draw. Might have been 2006, 2007. I can't remember a time really where Newcastle actually shocked Arsenal at the Emirates to go a goal up.
Mm. Yeah, well, without winning the obviously with the Carroll goal, we very rarely go 1-0 up.
Yeah, we've seen here from Lee goals. We haven't conceded in the first half for ages, and this was the Wolves game they're talking about. Went 1-0 away from home. It's the game where we've been behind the longest in any game this season. And then obviously we scored near the end, didn't we? Which makes sense, yeah. But again, we scored in the second half, didn't they, Wolves? Early the second half, was it?
No. They scored in the first half. It was Neves. Neves scored.
Was that the first half? Was it?
Yeah. First off, because both goals were at the same end. It was your side of the pitch.
Yes, it was. Yeah,
it was your side of the pitch. Neves scored from the edge of the area. Great goal, and then Maxi with the superb volley. But but obviously Man City was the week before that. Interesting. But boys, I'm going to leave it there. So I'm going to give our sponsors a very, very quick shout out before we wrap up the show. Huge thanks to Simon and Shyburns, www.shyburns.com. Make sure that you check out all of the great gear that is available at Shyburns, and the new hoodies that Daz has been showing on the show. He's been wearing and representing as well. They've got the away days gear. Thank you to Pins and Prints for all your support with regards to the channel and some of the things there. As well as that, Machine House, thank you, Marty, for all your support and for the fantastic gear that you've got there available. And Geordie Rise, thank you, Geordie Rise, for your support with the channel too. And of course, we have the Radiator Shed. We've got Russ, who's been in the chat tonight. Welcome, Russ. Hope you're well. The radiatorshed.com for all your radiator needs. And of course, they provide top quality materials from plate steel, providing longevity. All designs are manufactured in Italy. Aluminium rads are very environmentally friendly and perfect for heat source pumps. And they offer home service and will install if required. And there's just a few little snippets of what is available. Thank you, Russ, for your continued support. Please click that like on the way out, but consider subscribing to the channel. We are on the way to 5K. Your support is always appreciated. And whilst you're there, become a member. Become a member of the channel, $1.99 a month. Just click that blue button, but make sure you do it on laptop, not on phone, because it's not available on mobile. So you have to go on your laptop to make that happen and become a member of the Loaded Mag family. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Keith, great to have you back on the Away Day show. Your stats are always fantastic. Even if they're not always fantastic towards Newcastle, they're still fascinating all the same, and appreciate you taking time putting them together. Chris, main man, great questions today as always. Great to be part of that Brandon Blaze connection with regards to Away Days, and there'll be many more in the weeks to come. And lastly, the channel for the channel and the chatters tonight, absolutely outstanding. So much support, always great questions, great points. Sorry if we didn't ask your question tonight. We had so many that we just couldn't get through them all. So I apologize for that, but we'll be back with more on the Loaded Mag NUFC channel, so stay tuned. There will be an Arsenal reaction, win, lose or draw, as well as that, and we'll get the poster for that out very shortly. The Fully Loaded Transfer Show will be back this week, so look out for that as well. Have a fantastic evening, guys and girls. Pray for those 3 points tomorrow night. We'll be watching it. I know you guys will be, and of course we do love playing away. How do you like that? How you like